Right now on Morning News Now, millions of Americans are off to a soggy start after a powerful storm slammed more than a dozen states, leaving some areas underwater. The system pushing through the Northeast overnight, causing power outages and triggering flood warnings. We're tracking where the system is heading now. Also this morning, race against the clock. Search and rescue crews are desperately trying to get to the hundreds of people trapped and missing after that massive earthquake rocked Taiwan. We have the latest from the ground and why experts say this could have been much worse. Plus, the World Central Kitchen founder is demanding answers after Israel's deadly airstrike on the aid organization's convoy.
They were targeted systematically, car by car, but there are 7 on top of a list of more than another 190 humanitarian workers that they've been killed over the last 6 months.
Now, President Biden is set to speak with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as outrage grows in the aftermath of the attack. And get your popcorn ready. The summer movie season is just around the corner, and this year is bursting with potential blockbusters. From Deadpool to Despicable Me, we are breaking down the big names coming to the box office.
Let's see if we have another Barbenheimer this year.
Also, in the midst of all this rain, it's like, okay, if we're talking about summer movies, it can't be too far, right?
Yeah, it's coming soon.
Very exciting.
Summer's coming. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to start this hour with that powerful storm system that has been making its way across the country this week. We want to show you a picture. This is from here in New York. Lightning striking the Statue of Liberty. The thunderstorm brought heavy rains and wind gusts around 50 miles per hour to the area. Now, forecasters say the storm shouldn't produce any more tornadoes or hail. That's some good news, but it is bringing more rain and flooding throughout the Northeast and New England.
Farther north, snow is the big concern. Some states like Maine and Vermont could get more than a foot of snow, making it the most significant snowfall of the season. A reminder, it's April. Top of all that, another storm system is brewing in California, bringing more wet weather to the West Coast. This morning, officials in Big Sur are encouraging people to evacuate. Crews there are still trying to repair roads that were damaged in the last storm.
For the latest on the severe weather, we've got your Morning News Now forecast.
Meteorologist Angie Lassman joins us now. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. You are exactly right. It is indeed April, and we are still talking about snow and a significant snowfall for folks in New England, maybe the most that we've seen all season long. So that's saying something, of course. We've got some improving conditions in a couple of spots, but I don't want you to get too used to it. Washington, D.C. to New York, you're looking at dry conditions right now. There's the snow I mentioned. Places like Boston still dealing with the potential for some rain and kind of a wintry mix this morning. And we've got some rain and even some snow at some higher elevations across parts of the Midwest. Now, parts of New England still under these winter alerts, including 8 million people, and for good reason. With that snow and those strong winds, likely to still see some difficult travel, some slick roads, and that snowfall is going to be quite impressive here as we go through the rest of your day today. When it comes to the winds, you probably heard them howling last night if you were sleeping in this area. Places like New York City, we saw really impressive wind gusts across this region, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts. And we still have the potential to see some of those strong wind gusts through the day today. So we're going to watch once more for the down trees, the down power lines as we get through your day today. We've got one area of low pressure, like kind of hanging out right by the coast. We've got another one that's going to eventually kind of fade off and we won't have to worry about that anymore. But this one stalls and leaves us with still the potential for some snow showers and some rain showers, not to mention some chilly and even breezy conditions as we get into the day tomorrow. We're still going to see some of those scattered showers across the region, but I don't want you to expect that it's going to be quite as heavy as what we've seen in the past couple of days as far as the rain is concerned, but the snow will be substantial. We could see additional snowfall up to a foot here as we get through the day today. That's on top of some already significant snowfall that happened yesterday. Some spots isolated, but still could be talking about the potential for 2 feet of snow by the time this system is finally out of the picture. Now, when we look ahead to this weekend, we're going to watch another system start to work onshore here in parts of California as we get through the day today and into tomorrow. Notice what we're dealing with by the time Friday rolls around. We've got some of that heavy snow across parts of the Sierra, the Cascades. We'll see that work into the Rockies. A lot of the country is going to be dealing with really nice conditions, some sunny skies, but we're still kind of unsettled across parts of the Northeast. The Appalachians will see that potential too. And then we start to see those storms working into parts of the plains. conditions. This is what we'll watch for your Saturday plans. We've got rain on tap for folks across the plains. We still got that snow, but now parts of the Rockies will deal with that. And the East Coast will start to dry out. Sunday, plenty of sunshine, but those showers will move east with that next storm system that we're going to be tracking over the next couple of days. We'll see widespread rain. And unfortunately, that means that we could potentially be dealing with some rain and maybe some cloudy conditions for the eclipse on Monday. Your spring chill, though, it is still in place. 39 degrees in Boston today. That's all you're getting. Detroit hits 48 degrees, mid-50s in Nashville, guys. Spring is nowhere to be seen in this region.
Maybe in May.
Maybe in May. We'll try again next month.
All right. Thanks, Angie.
Thank you. This morning, there is growing anger over that Israeli strike on a World Central Kitchen convoy in Gaza that killed 7 aid workers. The U.S. aid group was delivering much-needed food to Gaza's starving population.
Several world leaders are now condemning Israel for the attack, and Prime Minister Netanyahu's explanation that, quote, this happens in war. Those leaders are calling for a quick and transparent investigation. In an interview with Reuters, the celebrity chef and founder of the group, José Andrés, rejected Israel's assertion that the attack was a mistake. He believes the aid convoy was targeted deliberately.
They were targeted systematically, car by car. They were targeting us in the conflicting zone, in an area controlled by IDF. Not democratic country and not military can be targeting civilians and humanitarians. It's very complicated to understand that we are going to be sending, America is going to be sending its Navy and its military to do humanitarian work, when at the same time, weapons provided by America, not to defend Israel itself from missile attacks, but use weapons that are killing civilians in this moment.
NBC News White House correspondent Ali Rafa joins us on this now. Ali, good morning. So we heard there from José Andrés saying that Israel systematically targeted this convoy despite coordinating with the IDF. Does the Biden administration see it that way?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Well, the National Security Council's John Kirby held a nearly hour-long phone call with reporters yesterday, and questions about this strike took up a large majority of that call. Kirby condemned the strike, but he also referred specific questions about it and who is accountable to Israel. He said that he wouldn't speak for the IDF's operations. He was also asked whether the U.S. would conduct its own investigation of what happened. And Kirby said that the U.S. would respect Israel's investigation, saying that it is the U.S. expectation that that investigation will be fully transparent and that the U.S. would not conduct its own. He also stressed how the U.S. has been and will continue to pressure Israel to take more care in protecting civilian life, as well as the lives of these humanitarian aid workers who are delivering much needed aid in Gaza. And that sentiment was echoed by State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller yesterday. Listen to his comments here.
It doesn't really matter how they made the mistake. At the end of the day, you have 7 dead aid workers who were there trying to deliver humanitarian assistance. So whatever the reason was that led to this tragedy, whatever the mistake that happened inside the IDF, it's unacceptable. And they need to do better, and they need to put measures in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Kirby on that call yesterday continuing to stress the U.S. view that Israel has the right to defend itself. And Kirby also denied claims that the U.S. is going easy on Israel, you guys.
So, Ali, José Andrés also said that he can't understand how the U.S. is trying to ramp up U.S. aid efforts while at the same time supplying Israel with weapons that they are, quote, being used to kill civilians. So what's President Biden's message going to be to Prime Minister Netanyahu when they speak today? Do we know, is the Biden administration prepared to use weapons as leverage?
Yeah, so it's always significant when these two leaders speak. But when you think about the backdrop of this call, the fact that so much has happened since the last time they spoke back on March 18th, the stakes really could not be higher. You have, the president not willing so far to say that he would condition military aid to Israel. We've seen him ramp up his criticism of Netanyahu in recent weeks. And as we see the personal relationship between these two men shift apart, the president and U.S. officials are trying to stress how close that the U.S. and Israel relationship still is, that these two allies, that there's no daylight between these two allies. Despite all of that, the U.S. is saying that its policy towards Israel has not changed, and it would continue to send military aid to Israel. As a matter of fact, it did just that as recently as last weekend. And even though that was part of longstanding aid to Israel, it still garnered a lot of criticism, guys.
All right, Ali Rafa, thank you so much.
Rescue efforts are still underway this morning in Taiwan after yesterday's 7.4 magnitude earthquake. At least 9 people were killed. Officials say more than 1,000 people were injured during the quake, with hundreds still trapped and dozens still missing. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer has the latest.
This is Hualien, and this is not the only building that is leaning so precariously. It shows how forceful that 7.4 magnitude earthquake was, and this was the area hardest hit, just 11 miles from the earthquake's epicenter. More than 1,000 people were injured in the quake, and hundreds are said to be trapped or missing, and there's now an all-out search to try to reach them. Here in Hualien, they are assessing the damage. Crews were pulling survivors through windows, and buildings like this are beginning to be demolished because there's simply no hope to rebuild them. People have been going to their houses and sifting through what's left and what's been lost, lamenting that so much could be destroyed in such a short period of time. But the real urgency here is in the mountain areas around Hualien. It's where helicopters have been rescuing mine workers stuck at a quarry, but there are still dozens who are still stranded there, and hundreds of people said to be trapped on roads that have been cut off by landslides. Some of them are trapped in tunnels, and there are dozens of people who are stuck at hotels in a national park. Now, earthquakes are not uncommon here. Taiwan sits on seismic fault lines along the Pacific Ring of Fire, but they do have good systems in place to try to prepare for them. There's cell phone alerts and very strict building codes, but still people are saying that they've just not experienced one as strong as this. At least 200 people are now living in temporary shelters because there are too many aftershocks and their houses are not yet stable. And again, the priority remains reaching those people who are stranded and desperately need to get to safety.
All right, Janice, thank you so much. In the race for the White House, new polling from several battleground states shows that former President Trump has the advantage over President Biden.
Several of these states were critical in President Biden's win in 2020. NBC's Garrett Haake explains how former President Trump is attempting to win back states he lost to Biden 4 years ago.
Wow, what a nice crowd this is.
Former President Trump barnstorming the Midwest this week, hoping to flip a critical region for his campaign.
November 5th, we are going to win this state. We're going to win the White House, and we are going to save our country. We're going to save our country.
Mr. Trump holding events Tuesday in Wisconsin and Michigan, 2 states he won in 2016, but lost to Joe Biden 4 years later. The former president now looking for cracks in Democrats' so-called blue wall ahead of their November rematch.
Go out and vote.
New polling shows he may have found some. A new Wall Street Journal survey shows Mr. Trump leading in 6 battleground states, including several Midwestern prizes. Biden is still within the margin of error in all of them, but it's a major reversal from 2020 when Mr. Biden won all but one of these states. The pair in a dead heat in Wisconsin, where the presumptive GOP nominee taunted Mr. Biden from a rally stage in Green Bay.
We have an empty podium right here to my right. You know what that is? That's for Joe Biden. I'm trying to get him to debate.
The easiest path to President Biden getting 270 electoral votes and winning re-election is repeating his victories in places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. In battleground Michigan, he has been trailing in poll after poll. And to change the trajectory of this race, he has to actually start overtaking Donald Trump.
Donald Trump doesn't trust women. I do.
The Biden campaign fighting back this week, releasing a new ad hitting Trump on abortion after the Florida Supreme Court greenlit a 6-week abortion ban, spotlighting the issue. The president also highlighting his financial advantage over his challenger in the wake of his star-studded fundraiser in New York City last week, flanked by former Presidents Obama and Clinton. But questions remain about whether the Biden campaign can translate donor dollars into votes.
By being the incumbent, President Biden and his campaign have the definite money advantage, and they're going to be spending campaign ad after campaign ad. But Donald Trump ended up proving in 2016 that sometimes you don't need the money advantage to be able to win a presidential contest.
The Wall Street Journal poll also underscoring concerns about Mr. Biden's fitness for the presidency. Nearly half of battleground state voters think Mr. Trump is more physically and mentally fit. Just 28% say it's Mr. Biden. The president facing another round of alarms from the battlegrounds as the culmination of his final campaign inches closer.
Our thanks to Garrett Haake for that report. Well, meanwhile, lawmakers in Nebraska made a late-night move on Wednesday to block a change to the way electoral votes are counted in the state during an election. Republican Governor Jim Pillen pushed for the change to a winner-take-all system in the state where all electoral votes go to one candidate instead of giving a vote to each congressional district. The measure overwhelmingly failed during a procedural vote.
Former President Trump's hush money trial is still on track to start in a week and a half. On Wednesday, the judge presiding over that criminal case here in New York rejected an attempt by his legal team to try and delay the trial. Trump's lawyers were trying to stop the trial from starting on April 15th, citing presidential immunity as part of his defense.
Judge Juan Merchan also denied Trump's motion to delay the trial until after the Supreme Court rules on his immunity claims in his federal election interference case. The former president is accused of falsifying business records involving alleged hush money payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Trump has pleaded not guilty to the charges.
NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen joins us now with the latest developments. John, good morning. So Trump's lawyers made this argument in a filing last month. Judge Merchan said Trump waited too long to raise this argument of presidential immunity, which is, of course, something the Supreme Court's going to tackle later this month. What are the main takeaways from the judge's decision here?
I think the main takeaway from the judge's decision here is there is now a judge out there on the record basically saying to Trump, I don't buy what you're saying. And specifically, he questioned the sincerity of the argument of presidential immunity, saying that, because this had been out there for a long time and Trump had not tried to avail himself of the argument that there was presidential immunity in this case, that him bringing up at this point is simply, dilatory, is basically an effort to get another delay and isn't really a sincere attempt. And I think, given all that's out there from the various judges hearing these various cases, Merchan's treatment of Trump, I think not only calls out Trump, but calls out those who would defend him on this question of, whether he's making legitimate legal arguments or simply trying to delay justice until the time that he might be reelected.
Prior to the ruling, prosecutors had urged the judge to reject the attempt to delay the trial because of pre-trial publicity, arguing that Trump has actually constantly stoked and encouraged such publicity. What impact could the ruling have on the proceedings?
Yeah, the sort of basic impact that it has on the proceedings is the proceedings are moving forward, number one. And number two, that you're going to, I think you're going to hear a lot about what Donald Trump said as president of the United States in this trial that suggests he knows exactly how all these payments worked. Trump is never one to hold back and has, said on social media in the past, basically how all of these things worked. How the payment structures worked, and also has, been pretty public in attacking just about everybody involved in the case, whether it's Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels or the judge.
John, let's talk about the classified documents case against Trump in Florida. Special counsel Jack Smith took a rare step criticizing an order by the presiding judge, Aileen Cannon. In a court filing, he said the judge's request for specific jury instructions is based on a, quote, fundamentally flawed legal premise. We'll ask you to put on your legal hat here. What's going on here? Explain it for us.
I'm not a lawyer, but sometimes I play someone who understands the law on television, guys. Look, what's going on here is that Jack Smith is frustrated with Judge Aileen Cannon, and I think this is also true with what you're seeing with Judge Merchan. The reason that some of this very public pushback is coming against Trump right now is that so far he's been winning in terms of delaying trials, et cetera. But with regard to the specific jury instructions piece, the significance here is that Jack Smith and his team have said effectively that they're going to appeal Judge Cannon's ruling if she rules against them. Basically saying they're not afraid of a delay if the answer to the question is that the jury should be instructed that basically that Donald Trump had a right or may have had a right to distinguish between personal records and basically presidential records, even in the case of records that had, top secret markings.
All right, John explaining it, putting on his lawyer hat. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Coming up, growing concern about the spread of avian flu to people, the action being taken to stop it, and what it could mean for the price of eggs.
But first, we've got some terrifying video out of Africa showing the moment that an elephant charged a truck full of American tourists, then flipping it over. Got that story next.
Welcome back. We are learning more about an American tourist who died while on a safari tour in Zambia. The terrifying moment seen here shows an elephant charging a truck full of tourists and then flipping it over. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster has more.
Dramatic video showing the moment an African safari turned deadly. A massive African bull elephant is seen in the distance running toward a vehicle full of tourists. Suddenly charging right at the group, eventually flipping over the entire thing with its tusks. The 6 passengers and tour guide inside sent tumbling over. One of those passengers, an American woman, tragically killed, according to the tour company Wilderness. Another guest was taken to a medical facility in South Africa for treatment, as 4 others were treated for minor injuries. The CEO of Wilderness pointing to the terrain and vegetation in a statement, writing the guide's route became blocked and he could not move the vehicle out of harm's way quickly enough. The deadly episode playing out in the Kafue National Park in Zambia. The massive 550,000-acre wildlife preserve is the oldest and second largest safari park in the world, a popular destination for people looking for an encounter with iconic African animals like lions, hippos, and elephants. The Safari Guide Company promises a tour of, quote, one of the wildest, most pristine places on Earth. But journeys into the home of Africa's wild animals can come with risks. While elephant attacks are not common, videos of the animal getting aggressive with tourists have gone viral before. But in Zambia, the tour company says it is cooperating fully with local police and wildlife officials in their investigation, as local authorities work with the U.S. Embassy to get the American woman who lost her life back home.
Our thanks to Shaquille Brewster for that report. Well, the CEO for the company Wilderness Safaris released a statement saying that trauma counseling has been provided to all involved, and they're supporting those guests and the guide involved in this distressing incident.
A major setback for the LGBTQ+ community in Uganda. A court there has ruled that most of the nation's anti-LGBTQ law is constitutional. That law includes the death penalty in some cases and has been criticized heavily by the U.S. government. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin has more.
Uganda's constitutional court upholding a majority of the country's notorious anti-gay law, which includes the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality, a law the Biden administration calls a tragic violation of universal human rights.
I'm worried. I am petrified. Given if the judges can give such a ruling, that means there's no protection for any LGBTQ person in Uganda. And I'm not immune to that.
Activist Frank Mugisha, listed as a petitioner on the legal challenge that was rejected, says they plan to appeal the ruling to Uganda's Supreme Court. He's been receiving death threats and is worried about what today's judgment means for the community.
For Ugandans, it is now state-sanctioned homophobia. It is telling Ugandans, now you can act. Now you can hate on LGBTQ persons.
So you're bracing for violence?
Definitely.
On Wednesday, the court ruled that some sections of the law do violate Uganda's constitution, including a provision that required mandatory reporting of homosexuals and another that prevented landlords from renting to the LGBTQ community. But the court deemed the rest of the anti-homosexuality law constitutional, including upholding the death penalty provision and the criminalization of homosexuality. It's a law that's overwhelmingly popular in Uganda.
We will fight for our African culture. We will fight for our faith.
The court called the law a reflection of the socio-cultural realities of the Ugandan society, even citing the U.S. Supreme Court Dobbs decision, striking down the right to abortion, pointing to how that ruling considered the U.S.'s history and traditions. In December, the U.S. government responded to the law with sanctions, including visa restrictions for certain Ugandan officials and reduced support to the Ugandan government. The State Department reacted to the ruling.
We believe that law undermines the human rights, prosperity, and welfare of all Ugandans.
Activists are calling on the Biden administration to do more. Now in New York, Mugisha says he plans to return to Uganda soon.
The whole entire world should be worried. And they shouldn't only be worried about Uganda, they should be worried about other countries.
Erin McLaughlin, NBC News, New York.
Coming up, the fight over reproductive rights heading to the courtroom in Tennessee.
The case that could upend the state's near total ban on abortion. That's next. We are back now with a look at the fight over reproductive rights in Tennessee. This morning, a state court is set to hear oral arguments on behalf of 7 women who were denied emergency abortion care during dangerous pregnancies and 2 physicians who were prevented from giving their patients treatment in a case seeking to put a pause on the state's near-total abortion ban.
At issue is the medical emergency exception to Tennessee's abortion ban. The plaintiffs are asking the courts to clarify what circumstances qualify under this exemption.
Angela Senadella, our NBC News Now legal analyst, joins us. Angela, good morning. Great to see you. So, as Joe just said, they're asking for clarification here. Walk us through what that means. What are they asking to be clarified? And then it's my understanding that from these women, we're going to hear some personal stories about what they went through, about what their health conditions were when they were pregnant. Tell us what we might learn.
Yes, all of these women experienced really terrible things as a result of being denied these abortions under the abortion ban. So the high-level context is that before Roe v. Wade was overturned, these medical professionals relied on abortion as a medical tool. And I don't even mean this in terms of purely elective abortions. I just mean when it was meant to preserve the health of the mother. But pretty much overnight, that just disappeared with Roe v. Wade being overturned. And then everyone is left questioning, well, what does that mean? What are doctors allowed to do? Now, in the state of Tennessee, I think it's important to note that doctors, if they do criminal abortions, would be subject to a Class C felony, meaning 3 to 15 years behind bars. Wow. So as a result, even if there is now this medical exception in the new statute, which in 2022 was passed, which allows for abortions to happen and gives physicians this ability, if it would save the life of the mother or prevent substantial injury to a major bodily function, doctors are still very hesitant because, you know, before courts define what any of these terms are, before you know how prosecutors are charging, these doctors are facing huge criminal penalties.
So the state of Tennessee obviously wants to defend this law. What do they need to show to try and keep the law on the books?
So the state of Tennessee wants to just keep it as it is because, frankly, vagueness is to their benefit. And they even really had a hard time even getting to the medical exception whatsoever. Remember, first, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, there was a total ban. There was no medical exception. They inched towards this ban. Now, the vagueness really helps them because they can then decide what to go after, what that means on their own terms. The lawsuit with the Center for Reproductive Rights is trying to do is also trying to expand those things. So situations like, well, where there's excessive bleeding, maybe that's okay. They want to have more clarity and an expansion.
Angela, the Center for Reproductive Rights also filed additional lawsuits. This is not the only state where this is happening. Texas, Idaho, Oklahoma. This is also on behalf of physicians and patients. Could the outcome of this have broader reaching effects than in Tennessee? How do these all kind of link together?
It's so interesting because in some ways, absolutely, they're all eyeing each other. And this happens when something that was considered to be a fundamental right then literally the next day becomes a criminal penalty. That doesn't happen very often. So everyone's looking around. But that said, this is also what the Supreme Court intended in overturning Roe v. Wade, in returning it to the states, almost intentionally creating chaos, not necessarily because they were evil, but in order to let the states determine for themselves. So the point is Tennessee will be different from Texas, will be different from Oklahoma, from California. So we can't jump to full conclusions yet that this will mean something for all the other states.
A hot button issue only getting hotter in an election year. Angela Sanadella, thank you so much.
We have an update to a story we first reported on last month. A small town in Oklahoma elected Judd Blevins, a man with white nationalist ties, to its city council. Well, this week, voters made their voices heard, ousting Blevins in a recall vote. NBC News correspondent Brandy Zadrozny is in Enid, Oklahoma, with the details.
On a blustery morning in Enid, Oklahoma, voters headed to the polls, there to answer a question that for months divided their city. Should Republican City Council member Judd Blevins be removed from office over his white nationalist ties?
Voting against Judd Blevins.
I voted for Judd Blevins. I believe that he's the man for the hour.
Blevins, seen here campaigning during recall vote, has said he never identified as a white nationalist or white supremacist. But activists in Enid who initiated the recall race took issue with his participation in the deadly 2017 Charlottesville Unite the Right rally and his past role with a state chapter of a white nationalist organization. Blevins refused to talk about his past when we approached him last month.
Why did you march and unite the right? Why did you hold a tiki torch and march as people say Jews will not replace us, sir?
But offered this at a candidate forum ahead of the election.
What were you trying to achieve, or what was your purpose in those
bringing attention to the same issues that got Donald Trump elected in 2016, securing America's borders, reforming our legal immigration system, and frankly pushing back on this anti-white hatred that is so common in media and entertainment.
Last night, according to preliminary votes, Blevins lost his seat by 268 votes to Republican Cheryl Patterson. One of those votes coming from Connie Vickers.
Let's go!
For a year, Vickers and her friend, Nancy Presnell, had been a part of the Enid Social Justice Committee, drawing attention to Blevins, often carrying this poster, showing him holding a tiki torch in Charlottesville before the rally. They gathered together as the election results came in. How are you feeling?
Elated, happy, relieved. Even though we're a red city, a red state, people still don't think that Nazis should be allowed to be in office, making decisions.
In a statement, Blevins called the race a trial not just for me, but for many in this community. But for many in the community, the results, a relief.
I was very proud of the city of Enid tonight.
Even with Blevins defeated, though, some see more work ahead.
The people who recruited him and supported him and paid for him are still there, and they're not going to give up.
Brandy Zadrozny, NBC News, Enid, Oklahoma.
Now to a health alert we want to tell you about this morning. The nation's largest egg producer temporarily shut down a facility in Texas after bird flu was discovered there. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky has more on the potential risks of bird flu and the impact this may have on consumers.
These new cases are troubling for everyone, but particularly those whose livelihood comes from raising the chickens that us grocery shoppers rely on. We are here in East Texas, standing just outside of a barn holding upwards of 14,000 free-range chickens. And the owner tells us even though he has security measures in place, he's fearful of what one infected bird could do to his entire business.
The American agriculture industry on high alert as a series of troubling new cases of highly infectious avian flu hit poultry farms, dairy producers, and now people. The nation's largest egg supplier destroying nearly 2 million chickens after birds at one of its Texas facilities tested positive.
It's highly dangerous to humans, although it has never been shown to be easily transmissible between people.
Now, the first U.S. case of a person suspected of catching this version of bird flu from a cow has been reported in Texas. Officials say the patient, a dairy employee who worked near infected cows, wasn't hospitalized and experienced only minor symptoms. The news comes as the highly contagious bird flu has spread to dairy cattle in at least 6 states. At Cedar Ridge Egg Farm outside Dallas,
it can spread anywhere.
Owner Raouf Wahid has strict safety measures in place for his 14,000 chickens, but the risk remains high.
If just one of your birds gets infected with avian flu, what happens to the flock?
They will all be destroyed.
Officials say the risk to human health remains low, but stress eggs or poultry should be cooked to an internal temperature of 165 degrees to kill any bacteria or viruses. The most immediate impact, though, may be to your grocery bill.
Egg prices, which have already doubled since 2020, could be inching higher if this current outbreak continues to spread. Now, officials warn that backyard or even pet chickens are at risk because of any wild bird that flies over them carrying the virus could potentially pose risk of infection. But they also do not suggest that this is all the start of a new pandemic. Send it back to you.
All right, Morgan, thank you so much. Coming up, the rising cost of childcare has parents and businesses feeling the crunch.
From daycare centers shutting their doors to families being priced out, we're going to dig into the delicate balancing act facing businesses and families all across the country next. Welcome back. Daycare centers all across the country are facing new funding challenges after losing billions of dollars in COVID-era funding. Some centers have been forced to raise tuition, while others have shut down altogether, leaving many families caught in the middle. NBC News correspondent Rahima Ellis has more.
Daycare is a place where kids can dream to be anything: a doctor, a post office worker, a dragon. But centers like this, Victoria's Castle Daycare in New York, are in a tough spot. $24 billion in pandemic federal funding for childcare, used for things like tuition assistance and teacher pay, ran out back in September.
Now that the crisis is over, it just seemed like everybody forgot that we were here.
Director Erica Perez says the center lost a quarter of its funding and had to raise tuition by about $200 a month. It's the center's first tuition hike in years. It puts a strain on some families. Correll Bain is a single mother and a post office worker, and for her, money is tight. Next month, her 4-year-old will move from 3 days a week in daycare to 5 days, bumping her monthly tuition to more than $1,200.
$1,000 plus is almost damn near my whole check, and hopefully it can be brought down a little some.
The daycare tries to work with lower income families' budgets, but that can be tough because the center also needs to make money.
That is always the concern. You know, how flexible can I be and for how long before the whole, deck of cards comes crumbling down?
Sometimes she's forced to make an agonizing decision: either keep a family that can't pay or let the child go.
You're almost saying goodbye to one of your family members. You become very attached to your families in your care.
The loss of funding also means teachers here are getting hundreds less in bonuses.
I wouldn't leave because we're going through a tough time. That's when you stick it out the most.
Yeah, it's more than just money here.
Over a few months, the center's enrollment more than doubled after other daycares in the area shut down. It's a familiar story nationwide. The Century Foundation, a think tank, estimates in each state tens, even hundreds of thousands of kids could lose care. And a new survey of early childhood providers found more than half knew of a program closing in their community in the past few months.
When we don't have reliable childcare options, that means that, many women are going to either lower their work hours or leave the workforce altogether.
President Biden just signing a spending bill that'll give an extra $1 billion to childcare programs. And some say the private sector has a role too. Media company The Skim launched a campaign calling on businesses to publicly share their child care policies.
The responsibility to help working families, working parents, and women stay in the workforce, stay as participants in this economy, doesn't just fall on one person or one part of the society.
All of these businesses like Verizon, Paramount, and MasterCard did share their plans, including things like work flexibility and care subsidies or stipends. It's a big problem begging a bigger solution to help ease the burden on parents looking to give their kids a brighter future.
Thanks to Rahima Ellis for that report.
Let's get you some financial headlines. It's looking like Google might soon start charging users for its AI features.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Silvana, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. Let's get you those headlines. All right, Google is planning to charge for its AI-powered search engine. The Financial Times reports the company is exploring a number of options, such as incorporating the AI search features into its premium subscriptions, which already offer access to its new Gemini Assistant in Gmail and Docs. Now, this would be the first time Google has put any of its core products behind a paywall. Google's traditional search engine would still be free, and ads will continue to appear alongside search results. Apple is shifting focus after its electric car project fizzled out. Bloomberg reports the company is developing personal robots for your home. Apple has started work on a mobile robot that can follow people around the house. It's also developing a tabletop device that uses a robot to move a screen around. The idea behind that is to have a machine that can mimic head movements and lock onto a single person in a group, and that's presumably for a better experience when making video calls. And Boeing's new chairman is reaching out directly to the heads of U.S. airlines in an effort to rebuild trust. Bloomberg says Steve Mollenkopf, who was formerly CEO of Qualcomm and a Boeing board member since 2020, is trying to smooth over strained relations with the airline customers who set in motion the company's biggest management shakeup ever. Boeing CEO, chairman, and head of its commercial airline business all announced their departures last week in the wake of the Alaska Airlines door panel blowout in January on that brand new 737 MAX jet, guys.
All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
You got it.
Every year, Fortune compiles its list of the best companies to work for. It's a chance to see how some of the top companies stack up against each other and how well they foster their workers' aspirations and their career goals.
Yeah, well, Fortune just released the 27th edition of the list this morning, and it's given us a look at what makes workers excited about their jobs. We're getting a lot of info about Gen Zers.
Irina Ivanova joins us now, Deputy U.S. News Editor for Fortune, to talk about this year's list. Before we reveal who's on the list, we want to ask you important information about how you come up with it and how did this year's list compared with last year's?
That's a great question. This is a really comprehensive survey sent to large employers with over 1,000 workers. And we ask about 60 questions on a whole range of topics. So from meat and potatoes questions like, do workers think their pay is fair, benefits and promotions, to things like, how meaningful is your work? Do you get praise? Do you feel supported? Does management do what they say they're going to do? Then there's a cutoff of a minimum amount of answers to make sure the data is good. And this year we have 630,000 responses that went into the list of the 100 best places to work.
All right, lots of data there. So actually kind of cool. Our parent company, Comcast, NBC Universal, we rounded out the top 10. But tell us, who are the top 5 and what is it that makes these organizations great places to work?
Sure. So on the top 5 this year, we have Hilton, Cisco, NVIDIA, American Express, and Synchrony. And there were some themes that came up among these top 5, and really among all of the companies on this list. Obviously, pay, will not surprise you, is a major factor. It's why most of us, have jobs. Workers said they felt fairly paid. And autonomy is another issue that employees raised quite a lot. A Hilton worker wrote, I can confidently share my ideas and they're taken seriously. A contributor at NVIDIA said that employees can comfortably speak with senior staff and that everyone's treated as equals. This was really interesting to watch. I think we know intuitively nobody really likes being micromanaged, but the importance of sort of autonomy really came through in a lot of these open-ended responses. And then work-life balance was another important point, and not just the idea of balance, but the actual benefits that make it possible. Everything from generous PTO and parental leave to mental health benefits to support for childcare costs. And on all those metrics, the best companies to work for this year are more likely to offer those benefits than your average American company.
You mentioned you interviewed dozens of young workers, soon-to-be workers, about their outlook on the workplace. And a lot of them, we have to keep in mind, they're joining the workforce for the first time since the pandemic happened. How is the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic shaping what they even think of the workplace?
That's right. I think for you and me and a lot of other people who are sort of farther along in our careers, the pandemic was sort of a blip when the normal way of work interrupted. And we had this weirdness for a couple of years. But for Gen Zers, for people who are in college and for people who just started working, their entire outlook has been shaped by this completely bizarre event. They saw millions of people being laid off like that, which was followed pretty quickly by a fast economic recovery and a labor market where, for the first time in a very long time, a lot of workers had options. They were not desperate, and they could really decide what they wanted and look for the best jobs for them. And so because of this unstable experience, maybe not surprisingly, stability was really important to a lot of people we spoke with. It was something they wanted. It was something they didn't expect to get. I think that's why you sometimes hear this idea of Gen Z as a little bit mercenary, which is really what many of us want. We want to be treated fairly by our companies. We want to be paid fairly now, not promised better pay, next year. Yeah. Stability was really important, and feeling like your company invests in you, like they're gonna bring their own things to the table.
Awesome. Very cool to hear. Irina Ivanova, thank you so much for joining us. Congrats on the list.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us this Thursday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, Mother Nature's wrath is taking a major toll on traveling Americans. Unrelenting rain, dangerous flash flooding, even some springtime snow. The weather causing thousands of flight delays and cancellations, hitting the East Coast especially hard. Tell us spring break crowds and solar eclipse enthusiasts pack America's airports this week, making for a travel nightmare. Our Angie Lassman has more on what you can expect as you head out the door. In Taiwan this morning, rescue efforts are ramping up after that deadly 7.4 magnitude earthquake. At least 9 people are dead and more than 1,000 injured. We're on the ground with the very latest as crews race to find the dozens still lost under the rubble. Also this morning, a safari tragedy in Africa. An 80-year-old American tourist killed after an aggressive elephant was caught on camera charging a group's vehicle in Zambia. We're going to dig into how it happened. And later in the hour, we're going to embark on a vibrant journey with a creative young man who has crafted a musical movie based on his own experiences with a rare brain condition. We're going to chat with Rudy Mancuso, a social media mastermind, now debuting a feature-length film. It's a fascinating story, a great conversation, and wait till you meet his mom. She's so lovely.
Oh, that's what a tease.
All right, we'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to start this hour with what might be a very busy day at the nation's airport. Flights and security lines already near capacity because of spring break travel.
Yeah, well, now a series of powerful storms are causing airlines to cancel or delay thousands of flights across the country. Not what you want to hear. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello is at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. to see how one of the nation's busiest airports is holding up.
Yeah, we've had a really volatile 24 hours in terms of the impact that weather has had on travel. Yesterday alone, we had about 1,100 flight cancellations in the United States, 7,500 delays. Things are improving today, but we're still at about 300 flight cancellations as the airlines try to correct course. We've also got the spring break, return travel rush, and oh, by the way, there's an eclipse rush on the way. This morning, travel throughout the Northeast is snarled as millions of Americans face severe weather. It's the same system that spawned tornadoes in the Midwest this week. Now storms are sweeping through multiple states in the Northeast. This incredible image capturing a lightning bolt striking the Statue of Liberty's torch. The weather also being blamed on the death of an elderly woman in Pennsylvania when a tree fell on her car. Overnight, a Delta Airlines flight from Milwaukee to New York experienced brief but severe turbulence, eventually diverting and landing safely in Baltimore.
When we dropped and everybody hit the ceiling.
It comes as we're learning more about a close call during a recent Southwest Airlines flight. The plane faced turbulence and low visibility at LaGuardia, veering off course.
We got to go around.
Air traffic control told the crew to perform a go-around.
because it's not going to land the runway.
The plane eventually landed safely in Baltimore. The FAA says it's reviewing the incident. This week, airlines have been forced to play catch-up with delays from the storm, and they're also bracing for a major rush. The peak of spring break travel expected to culminate today, just as the typical beach getaway crowds converge, with many Americans looking for a different kind of sun worship.
It's sort of a perfect storm.
Communities along the path of eclipse totality, including some that don't often see a big influx of spring breakers, now getting ready to welcome visitors for Monday's solar eclipse. Hertz says advanced bookings for this weekend are up a staggering 3,000% from the same time last year.
We expect 1 million or more people to visit the state of Texas to see the eclipse. And that's going to mean a substantial increase in traffic volumes on our major corridors.
And for the millions expected to travel in the coming days, the TSA chief says his agency has been working for years to make sure things go smoothly.
For standard passengers, non-pre-check, generally should wait no longer than 30 minutes.
So if you really want to go for the eclipse and you haven't bought your tickets yet, be warned, they can be double and triple what you would normally pay. I had to buy an airline ticket to go from D.C. to Indianapolis for the company to cover the eclipse on Sunday. $2,000 round trip on my trip, D.C. to Indy. You could go to Europe for cheaper than that. Thankfully, it's on the company credit card, but be warned. Guys, back to you.
Good for you, Tom Costello. Thank you.
Make sure no one's going to argue with that expense report.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's get a closer look at how the severe weather could be impacting you this morning with your News Now forecast.
Angie Lassman's with us in studio. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. We've got still some rain and some snow, and we're, of course, going to talk about the eclipse forecast, but let's get through what we're dealing with right now, which is that snow across parts of New England. We see a little bit of rain working closer to the Appalachians. We still got some snow and rain and kind of just annoying weather across parts of Michigan, and the winter alerts are still topping about 8 million people, mainly across parts of New England, as we gear up for a couple more rounds of impactful weather through the day today. One of those impacts, not just the snow and the rain, but also the winds on top of it. You may have noticed that overnight. You're probably waking up, getting out the door, and seeing some of these branches on the ground. That's what we're expecting again through the day today, with wind gusts anywhere from 40 to 50, even close to 60 miles per hour and higher than that across this region. Boston included in that. We're going to see this be a potential impact here through at least the day today. About 5 million people are under those alerts. Here's what's going to happen, though, as far as winding this system down. We're still going to be dealing with it through the day today. Notice the snow is still draped across parts of New England. We still have these kind of scattered showers across the Northeast. That'll continue even into tomorrow. I think we'll still be dealing with kind of the off and on showers in some of these spots. The higher elevations, of course, we'll be talking about the snowfall, additional snowfall on top of what we've already received, as this system kind of just stalls right at the coast. Between now and then, as we get into the evening hours tonight, I think we'll get a good amount of snow in some of these spots. The higher elevations, of course, a little more. But notice where you see the brighter pinks and purples, that's 9 inches to a foot of snow. By the time this is over with and gone, we likely will see 2 feet of snow in some of those isolated spots. So again, we are in April, in fact, but still dealing with the snow for a little while longer. Not just on the East Coast, we've also got snow in the picture, mountain snow, that is, for parts of the West as a new storm system works onshore. It's a low that's going to work into parts of central California. We will see the heavy rain out towards the coast, so heads up for folks there. That'll be something you deal with as we get through the day today and potentially into tomorrow. We'll start to see some of that snow working out across parts of the Great Basin. And Southern California, it's still dealing with those scattered showers. This, though, this is what everybody wants to know, right? You're making your total eclipse plans. Maybe you're not in that path of totality, but what's the forecast going to be? So here's the deal. We've got there what you see in the center. That's where you'll see the path of totality. Of course, the farther you go away from it, you get less and less of that. But how about the forecast? Well, we're talking about some cloudy conditions. Where you see the brighter blue, that's cloud cover 0%. So that's the less cloud cover. Where you see the gray, that's more cloud cover. It looks like we're going to see a fairly cloudy conditions when it comes to parts of the Gulf Coast and even up into parts of the northern plains. Parts of the Midwest could see some of that. And on top of that, we've got some rain chances in the forecast. So one of the hot spots, of of course, we've been talking about Dallas, Texas, right in the path of totality. A lot of folks headed there. We've got 60% cloud cover. That's the number that you see there. But on top of that, we've got the chance to see some rain as well. That goes for Austin, Texas, Little Rock, Arkansas as well when we see that totality happening just before 2 o'clock on Monday. The clouds, 50% of the sky will be filled with those clouds for folks there. As we get up into parts of the Midwest, a little bit less of a chance for some of the rain and the cloud cover, but still, it's not zero. Indianapolis, if I was going somewhere, I would go to Indianapolis based on the weather. We've got only 20% cloud cover that day, so that's looking a little better. Places like Cleveland, Ohio, again, as we get closer to just after 3, as they're hitting totality, it looks like we could be dealing with some rain and the potential for some pretty cloudy conditions. Other spots across parts of the Northeast that are going to look good in the New England area, Burlington, Vermont, guys, and parts of Maine. That's where you'll see less cloud cover, but again,
not sure if you heard Tom, but it costs $2,000 to get to Indianapolis. So
well,
that may not work for everyone.
I guess I'll put it on my company card, too.
You could drive. It's a quick flight. I don't know how long the drive is. Angie, thank you so much. Well, now let's get to the latest out of Taiwan. The race is on to recover those who are still missing after a deadly earthquake struck Wednesday morning. Hundreds of people are still trapped and dozens are missing following the biggest tremor on the island in 25 years. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Fair is on the ground in Taiwan with the latest. Janice, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. This is Hualien, and this building is leaning very precariously. It shows how forceful the earthquake was that hit here, and this was the area that felt it the most, just 11 miles from the epicenter, and the numbers here are rising. More than 1,000 people are injured, hundreds are trapped, and there's an all-out search to try to reach them.
The violent earthquake shaking buildings, making rooftop pools churn, and causing landslides, boulders tumbling down roads and crushing cars. Today across Taiwan, a search for people trapped or missing. Some buildings so damaged they're at risk of falling over. Helicopters rescuing remote quarry workers, but dozens remain stranded. The magnitude 7.4 quake made roads buckle and houses crumble. Staff at this hospital raced to protect newborn babies from feeling the jolt. Today in Hualien, people are sifting through what's left and what's been lost. Memories destroyed in an instant, she says. The urgency now in the mountains along the eastern coast. Emergency teams trying to reach hundreds of people trapped on blocked roads, in tunnels, and at hotels in a national park. Earthquakes are common in Taiwan, sitting on seismic fault lines on the Pacific Ring of Fire. The island is well prepared to deal with them, with a system of cell phone alerts and strict building codes.
Oh yeah, we'll go inside like
most people here, Jason Delicta has been through this before. This was the American's restaurant yesterday. Today, he's picking up the pieces and open for business again. There have been more than 200 aftershocks here, and officials are warning of more.
In a short time, this building has become a landmark here, but it is at risk of toppling. Officials are concerned about aftershocks, that if one of them is strong enough, it could bring that building down. It's why we're only allowed to get so close. And local city officials say that tomorrow they will begin demolition on this building and others that have been deemed too damaged to repair. At the same time, the focus does remain on those search and rescue missions in trying to get those people who are trapped to safety. Savannah?
All right, Janice, thank you so much.
Celebrity chef José Andrés is accusing Israel of systematically targeting his aid group's convoy. 7 workers with World Central Kitchen were killed in a strike while delivering food to Gaza's starving population. Israel is calling it a mistake. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest. Raf, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Israel's military is already investigating the killing of those 7 aid workers, but now World Central Kitchen is saying that's not enough. They want an independent investigation conducted by a third party. They're calling on Israel to preserve evidence, and Chef José Andrés demanding accountability.
Overnight, World Central Kitchen calling for an independent investigation into the Israeli strikes that killed 7 of its aid workers.
Some of the people that died were my friends, and I served with them.
The founder of the charity, Chef José Andrés, speaking out, demanding answers on why Israeli forces opened fire when the aid convoy was prominently marked and had shared its route in advance.
That they were targeted systematically, car by car. So this was not just a bad luck situation where, oops, we dropped the bomb in the wrong place, but we need to know the truth. We owe it to the Palestinians that they died before them, to every single other humanitarian organization and every other humanitarian. We owe it to every children that has died under circumstances that should not be happening.
Israel calling the attack a tragic mistake, saying early findings suggest the vehicles were misidentified in the darkness of night.
It shouldn't have happened.
Among the World Central Kitchen dead, 33-year-old Jacob Flickinger, a dual U.S.-Canadian citizen and the father of an infant son. The president making his frustration with Israel over the attack public.
He's outraged and he's heartbroken.
While more reports emerge of a difficult private meeting the president held this week with Muslim community leaders. One Palestinian-American doctor walking out after just 5 minutes.
Out of respect for all of the people who have suffered and who have been killed in the process, I need to walk out of the meeting.
And the New York Times reporting the president told another attendee that the First Lady is urging him to end civilian casualties. But the White House says it will continue supplying Israel with weapons, including massive 2,000-pound bombs. While in Jerusalem, families of the hostages crying out from the gallery of Israel's parliament, smearing the glass with yellow paint, as they demand Prime Minister Netanyahu make a deal to bring their loved ones home.
And President Biden expected to speak to Prime Minister Netanyahu today. It'll be their first call since the killing of those aid workers and comes amid a very public disagreement between the U.S. and Israel over Israeli plans to press ahead with an attack on Rafah. Joe.
All right, Raf, thank you so much.
Let's bring in retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. He's a senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities and also the host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. So let's start, of course, on this Israeli strike on the World Central Kitchen aid convoy in Gaza. So Israel says, as we heard, it was a mistake and that these things happen in war. From a military perspective, is that an acceptable explanation?
No, absolutely not. It should not be acceptable in any way, shape, or form. And look, I have physically seen and been part of an operation just like this from a command center in the Middle East during my deployment to Afghanistan, where we saw something, we thought that it was an enemy, and I remember so vividly somebody saw them moving something with a drone that it looked like an artillery shell, and we said, "Oh, that's them bad guys, take them out." But something told the operator, said, "No, it could be something else. Let's vector somebody on the ground." And we sent some ground troops to find out what was going on. Turned out it was not. It is so easy to just push a button and say kill them, but especially the way this one happened, where you went from car to car to car, and when people are trying to get away, that means you're following them and taking them out each step of the way. This was coordinated ahead of time, so this can't be an accident or a mistake that's just brushed off. This is a major incident that needs major repercussions.
That example paints a vivid picture there.
Sure
so
does.
Lieutenant Colonel José Andrés says he can't understand how the U.S. is trying to ramp up aid efforts while also sending weapons to Israel. Raf mentioned that includes 2,000-pound bombs. So far, the Biden administration's been reluctant to use its weapons deliveries as leverage. Why do you think that is? Could we be at a turning point here?
I think we could be at a turning point, and frankly, we need to be at a turning point, because there is a right way to conduct these operations. Israel was heinously attacked on October the 7th, and they deserve to go after the people that did this. But there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. And I've participated, I've trained people how to do it the right way, where you protect the population. But the way Israel's doing it is there is no care, concern given to the population at all. And in fact, they're systematically being destroyed, and the infrastructure and the ability to survive is being simultaneously destroyed. That's not not targeted anything, that is being wanton destruction. And it's getting rightly, I think, condemnation from around the world and in the United States. We're getting tied to this because we keep giving them all the supplies and the capabilities, and we never hold anything back, which is making us complicit in the world's eye and damaging our own credibility and influence in the region. And that's why I think for our own national security, it's time for Biden to say there are consequences.
And in terms of why, their explanation about how they can hand these weapons off, what they're doing, I mean, how is it even possible that the U.S. ensures that its weapons are being used in accordance with international humanitarian law, especially right in the aftermath of a strike like the one that we saw on the aid convoy?
Well, look, we have an obligation that when we provide weapons and ammunition, that we have ability to control what's happening, or not to control it, but to observe what's happening, to see where these weapons are being used, how they're being used. And of course, all you got to do is look on YouTube and you can see the videos every day. You don't have to have, access to an internal secret place there, and we can know what is lawful and what is not. I mean, we have literally departments in the Pentagon to be able to ascertain this. It's not hard, and it's very clear that they are not following this order, and yet you had the State Department a week or so ago certifying that we don't see anything wrong, and it's plain to see. You don't have to be an expert. Something is amiss between what we're saying and what's happening on the ground.
Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, always great to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the mounting pressure in Washington for Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor to resign. We're going to tell you who's behind that push as Democrats look to try and keep the court from swinging further to the right.
First, though, terrifying video of an elephant attack in Africa. The scary safari encounter that led to the death of an American tourist. We'll have more on that up next.
We're back now with that video of an elephant charging at a truck of tourists during a safari in Zambia. The incident led to the death of an elderly American woman. NBC News correspondent Jacob Soboroff has more on the story.
Video capturing the moment the trip of a lifetime turned deadly.
Oh my goodness.
A group of tourists on safari in Zambia spotting a bull elephant. The animal then charging their truck. The massive elephant flipped the truck over, leaving an American woman dead. Overnight, the woman's daughter identifying her as Gail Madsen of Minnesota, sharing photos from the fatal trip in a Facebook post, writing Madsen lost her life in a tragic accident while on her dream adventure. Another woman was injured and treated at a nearby medical facility. The CEO of the tour company, Wilderness, said that the guides are, quote, extremely well-trained and experienced, but that the terrain and vegetation was such that the guide's route became blocked and he could not move the vehicle out of harm's way quickly enough.
Is there blame, do you think, to be placed on that guide for leading him into an area where there was no way out?
No, I don't think so, Jacob. It's extremely rare to see an elephant that irate react so aggressively.
But it's not the first time an encounter with these majestic creatures got too close for comfort. Last month, a bull elephant rocked this 22-seat safari truck in South Africa's Pilanesberg National Park. Hendry Blom had just gotten off the truck. He filmed the encounter while hiding from the elephant nearby.
The elephant was there, and he was huge, and he was head to head with the truck.
No one was hurt in the incident. The guide told the group that the bull elephant was in a state of breeding known as must, which also could have been the case with the elephant who charged the truck in Zambia. Wildlife attacks on safari are extremely rare. Deaths among tourists, even more so.
Across Africa, there are thousands and thousands of guests on safari on a daily basis with no negative consequences.
All right, Jacob Soboroff, thank you for that. For more on this and what we can do to stay safe during animal interactions, we're joined by Zoo Communications Director at Zoo Miami, Ron McGill. Ron, good to have you with us this morning. I mean, tell us, what do you think went wrong leading up to this fatal incident? How do you think this could have happened?
Well, as already been pointed out, it's extremely rare. I've been to Africa over 50 times on safari, photographed animals, been around elephants countless amount of times. This was just a really freak accident. Unfortunately, like they pointed out, the driver got to a position where he could not get out of the way. I have never seen an elephant chase down someone in the fashion that this bull did. I mean, he really followed that truck for quite a distance. You know, this is something that's extremely rare. People need to put it in perspective. Elephants are incredibly intelligent animals. What I tell people as tourists, listen, when you go out there, don't try to, you know, get your guides or your drivers to get closer to an animal. Nobody knows better about those animals than those guides, those drivers. They've been incredibly trained to keep you safe, to keep the animals safe. Respect the animals, and hopefully you won't get in that position, but it doesn't negate the possibility of something like this happening. But put it in perspective. Elephants are incredibly intelligent. You have very smart ones that do very well, but just like people, you'll have 99% of the people are great, and you might have one that's a bad actor. And this elephant was obviously, for one reason or another, incredibly irate.
You reference, I guess, I mean, this is rare, so like you said, freak accident, but you reference kind of what the driver did there with getting into a position where he couldn't necessarily get out. Is there anything that you should be asking from the safari company if you are going out on one, or ensuring that they're doing to try to even make this rare chance not a possibility?
Well, again, and looking at the video, the short clip that I saw, he was trying to evade this elephant. He was going, and you know, having been out there so many times, that terrain is very unpredictable. You don't have like planned out roads or anything like that. And all of a sudden, in an attempt to escape, you can get stuck. And that's exactly what happened there. Listen, this happened to me at the bottom of the Ngorongoro crater, and I had an elephant come up and actually tip the truck while I was in it. Fortunately, nothing further happened after that. But again, a rare incident. These people, and I have worked with Wilderness on many occasions, one of the most respected safari companies throughout Africa. These people are the best trained. What I tell people is, listen to your driver, listen to your guide. That driver did the right thing when he saw he couldn't move the vehicle. He was making all that noise, pounding. That's exactly what you need to do.
We have to remember, of course, in these situations, folks are interacting with animals in their own habitat. When that's happening, what are the most important things for people to keep in mind to protect themselves and protect the environment, too?
First of all, keep your distance. Understand the driver, when he is not as close as you want to be, and say, oh, I got to get a better picture. You know, things like social media drive people to do things that aren't very intelligent. They want to get that shot. They want to get all the likes on their photographs. Please respect and listen to the drivers and the guides. But most importantly, be quiet, observe, listen. Do not stand up in the vehicles. Do not make any kind of, quick movements in the vehicles. You're in an animal's natural habitat. You want to be respectful. You want to be quiet. You want to observe and soak in the beauty of it. I can tell you that Safari to Africa is one of the most amazing, unbelievable, unforgettable experiences of your life.
Are there ways to still appreciate and experience the beauty of, what a safari is going to bring you? Maybe if you're scared now without going on one, or without, of course, causing harm to the animals or the environment?
Well, again, I don't think there's anything better than going on a good safari in Africa. The folks there, these countries in Africa understand that this is an economic engine for them. They're going to do everything to keep the animals safe. They depend on these safaris. And this is what worries me about an incident like this. It gets so much negative publicity that people say, oh my gosh, I'm going to cancel my trip now. Please don't do that. I equate it to, again, I don't mean to be morose, but to like a plane crash. There's a plane crash. Oh my God, I don't want to fly anymore, when flying is actually probably the safest way you can travel.
All right. Ron McGill, your experience much appreciated this morning. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
50 safaris. That's incredible. Thanks, Ron. Coming up, a boardroom blitz at Disney fended off by shareholders.
After the break, CEO Bob Iger's tall task of convincing investors he's still right for the job after a searing swipe at the company's top brass. We're going to dig deeper into what happened next.
Welcome back. There are growing calls from some liberal advocates for Justice Sonia Sotomayor to retire before the November election. It's amid concerns for her health and the prospect of another Donald Trump presidency. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has more on the attempt to prevent the court from swinging further to the right.
The direction of the Supreme Court has had liberals worried for years. Some Democrats focusing that angst on Justice Sonia Sotomayor. The current 6-3 conservative majority led to the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
This decision must not stand.
A landmark Supreme Court decision that had protected abortion rights for decades. That decision has opened the door to concerns around a whole host of issues the court could weigh in on, from gun control to freedom of speech to consumer protections.
Rarely have there been a couple of years where so much constitutional law changed so quickly, all in a conservative direction.
The swing in the balance of high court power is directly related to the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who chose not to retire at the tail end of President Barack Obama's term, despite being in her 80s and suffering from cancer. At the time, Democrats were convinced Hillary Clinton would be the next president, but instead, Donald Trump pulled off the upset.
Breaking news, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died.
Justice Ginsburg passed away in 2020, and Trump appointed conservative Amy Coney Barrett to replace her. Roe v. Wade was overturned just 20 months later.
Certainly, I think if Justice Ginsburg had to do over again, she might have rethought her confidence in her own health.
Liberal legal activists have set their sights on Justice Sotomayor, who is a healthy 69 and shows no signs of retiring. Some calling out this appearance, where Sotomayor said she was tired.
I'm working harder than I ever have. And to be almost 70 years old, this isn't what I expected.
UC Berkeley Law School Dean Erwin Chemerinsky, who moderated that discussion, says those criticisms are unfounded.
She's only 69 years old. Also, this being an election year makes it quite unlikely that the Democrats would be able to fill her seat, and having it open for President Trump would, I think, be quite disadvantageous from a progressive perspective.
Judge Sotomayor, are you prepared to take the oath?
I am.
But she is the oldest liberal on the court and a lifelong diabetic, and some are worried the stakes are too high.
Justices have to make their personal decisions about their health and their level of energy, but also to keep in mind the larger national and public interest in making sure that the court looks and thinks like America.
The White House won't engage on the topic.
That is a decision for that justice to make. Again, it's a personal decision.
Polls show the race between President Biden and former President Trump within the margin of error. A Trump win, coupled with the possibility of Republicans taking back the Senate, would lead to a period where a health setback for Sotomayor could lead to a 7-2 conservative majority, a risk some argue they should not take.
We should learn a lesson, and it's not like there's any mystery here about what the lesson should be. The old saying, graveyards are full of indispensable people, ourselves in this body included.
Well, our thanks to Ryan Nobles for that reporting. A new survey out yesterday found that 47% of adults approve of the job the Supreme Court is doing. That's the highest rating in more than a year.
Disney shareholders overwhelmingly voted to keep the company's current board intact during its annual meeting on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right. There's some drama here. They held off one of Wall Street's most aggressive investors. That's activist shareholder Nelson Peltz, who had tried to win a seat on the board after expressing frustration over how Chief Executive Bob Iger was handling the company.
NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas joins us now with more on this. So a lot of high drama here. It feels like Succession, but without children. First, let's start with the basics. Who's Nelson Peltz? What were the issues he was trying to raise here?
Activist investor, what does that mean? Well, Nelson Peltz, he's this multi-billionaire, and he goes in with his company and he buys minority stakes in companies in order to get board seats and change the company around for profit. It's usually companies that aren't doing so well, and he looks to shake it up. He has 2% of Disney's shares. So obviously he has a vested interest in Disney doing well, and he has been very vocal over the last few years criticizing Bob Iger and the direction that Disney has been headed. He's criticized everything from Disney Plus not being profitable, criticizing ESPN for losing viewership. I mean, look at all the cord cutters. And he's also criticized Disney, saying that they are too woke, that they have all African-American cast, or they have all female cast. And he says people don't want to go to the movies to get a message. They want to go to the movies to be entertained. And also, he's been talking about being concerned with who's going to take over for Bob Iger when he allegedly officially retires in 2026.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. How is Disney doing? I mean, we've seen their stock is actually up 50% over the last 6 months, but is that an accurate snapshot of the company's health?
So I was talking to CNBC's Alex Sherman on the phone just a few moments ago, and he was saying, look, everybody wins, right? Disney stock goes up a little bit. It went down in the midst of these proxy wars, goes up a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, Nelson Peltz has money that he's making off of Disney, whether or not he has these board seats. Obviously, the board voted to keep the board as it is, keep it going the way that Iger wants to run it. We know that Bob Iger, he has plans, like he's putting out a Moana sequel, and he has plans to boost viewership. You know, Disney Plus is going to be profitable for the very first time, the streaming platform that Disney has at the end of Q4. But look, I mean, Disney has issues that a lot of networks and a lot of streaming platforms have. And there was at one point, you know, Bob Iger was talking about maybe selling ABC News, and then he walked back those comments because it really concerned staffers at ABC News. And, you know, he's been looking for ways to cut their debt and to bring profits up. It's a really tough issue right now that everyone is facing with so many of these young kids that are watching their shows on streaming. Like, here.
They're not the only company trying to figure out how to make money off of streaming right now. Was this sort of seen as like a referendum on Iger's leadership right now?
Definitely. So, I mean, look, Bob Iger, he has pushed back his retirement 5 times. He left. They put Bob Chapek in charge. They then were both sort of running Disney at the same time because Bob Iger came back. And, you know, look, Nelson Peltz has said, Bob Iger is not doing as good of a job as he could. We cannot trust the board to make a good decision in terms of a successor because, look, they haven't been able to do it successfully so far. And overall, profits have been down for Disney. So what does the future look like and who is going to take over? Bob Iger says that they are looking for a successor and they are doubling down on that.
All right. Chloe Malas breaking it down for us. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
That was great.
Coming up, we are celebrating a royal milestone this morning.
Yeah, it's been 20 years since the world was introduced to Kate Middleton, who was first photographed with a young Prince William back in 2004. We're going to look back on their relationship this morning, of course, as the princess battles cancer. That's up next. Welcome back. It's been 20 years since Prince William and Princess Kate's relationship became public. Photos of the royal couple together on vacation were first published in the British tabloids back in 2004. NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter joins us for a look back at that moment and how the couple's relationship has developed since then, especially in light of Princess Kate's recent health news. Molly, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. That's right. It has been 2 decades since the world first met then Kate Middleton. Of course, now she's the Princess of Wales and the future queen. And it all started with this photo. Take a look.
20 years ago this week, a history-making headline. Wills gets a girl on the cover of the Sun newspaper. The first snaps of a young William and Kate together on the Swiss slopes back in 2004. Their relationship kept under wraps until then, setting off a tabloid obsession with the now future queen.
They tried to keep it private, but of course there was intense speculation about it. It was immense pressure at that time for them.
The two started dating at St. Andrews University, where Kate famously strolled the catwalk at a charity fashion show. The couple graduated in 2005. William's grandmother, the late Queen, one of his guests. The following year, multiple public appearances, including at Queen Camilla's daughter's wedding, fueling speculation that this may be forever. But like her late mother-in-law, Princess Diana, photographers hounded her, even documenting their brief breakup in 2007.
I, at the time, wasn't very happy about it, but actually it made me a stronger person.
And after much speculation, finally in 2010, what the world had been waiting for, those famous engagement photos. Princess Diana's sapphire engagement ring on full display, followed by a blockbuster royal wedding. Over the last decade, the now future queen has become one of the hardest working royals, one of the most popular, a steady senior presence at major events. She and William welcomed 3 children in 5 years, dutifully showing off each newborn to the press. The Wales children stealing the country's heart at public events, and William and Kate shining at King Charles's coronation.
This, of course, came as a
Now the Princess of Wales sharing with the public she's undergoing preventative cancer treatment.
Well, 20 years on, it is an absolute relationship for the ages. There are testing times at the moment with Kate's health, the King's health as well. But this is a family who will pull together, and I think William and Kate are the embodiment of that.
And after 2 decades in the public eye, Kate and William now asking for privacy as she recovers.
Now, Savannah, we know the Wales family is taking some time, just the 5 of them, over the Easter holidays. The kids are off school for about another 2 weeks or so. We also know, though, Kate is very excited to get back to public-facing duties when she's able. Savannah?
All right, Molly, thank you so much.
Now to financial headlines, some new economic data coming in this morning, the latest read on unemployment.
Silvana Hanau is back with us with that and other news. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Yeah, good morning to you. So we're getting a fresh take on the U.S. economy and the labor market. The number of Americans applying for jobless benefits rose last week, but layoffs do remain at historically low levels as the labor market continues to chug along despite those elevated interest rates. The Labor Department reporting filings for unemployment for last week climbed by 9,000 to 221,000 from the previous week. Now, this was versus the 213,000 that was expected by economists. Levi Strauss says nearly half of its sales are now happening online and in its own stores. This marks a shift as department stores like Macy's and Kohl's face an uncertain future, and Levi's looks to grow its stores and website. Selling directly to consumers instead of through other retailers boosts Levi's profits and gives it better data on customers and their spending habits. Elon Musk and X are being sued by a former executive at Twitter over millions of dollars in unpaid severance. Nick Caldwell ran Twitter's Redbird core tech team of engineers. He resigned shortly after Musk completed his purchase of Twitter in the fall of 2022. Caldwell is now chief product officer at Peloton. His lawsuit is similar to one filed by other former Twitter executives who claimed they're owed $128 million in severance pay and benefits, guys.
All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
That's some more Musk-related news. Tesla is often known for its innovative and trailblazing designs, but it's facing a wave of criticism over its latest pricey product. The company released a camping tent attachment for the highly sought-after Cybertruck vehicle, and it costs nearly $3,000. Now, critics are taking to social media to ask whether the final product is worth that price tag. Here's NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo.
And finally, the future will look like the future.
It was the truck that promised to propel the industry into the future. And just 4 months after its release, Tesla's Cybertruck is turning heads again.
Big a trash fire as the Cybertruck itself.
This time because of an accessory, the Cybertruck Base Camp Tent, an attachable unit designed to turn the truck into a comfortable sleeper.
$3,000.
But for a nearly $3,000 price tag, critics are saying there's a gap between the original hype and what the consumer is actually getting. Really rough. Early 2019 marketing materials showed a sleek geometric frame with the prospect of kitchen attachments separate from the tent. But when sales started earlier this year, the images on Tesla's website had a few design changes.
I still think it's a huge missed opportunity.
It's kind of a misstep for Tesla, just given over the years, they've really leaned into being design forward and just kind of being cool.
So getting into the tent.
Brandon Williams got his tent 3 weeks ago and posted a review online showing the setup process from hooking it up to the truck bed to inflating it with a manual air pump.
It just so happens to be exactly what my wife and I are looking for. We've done some test sleeping in it here next to the house prior to our first camping trip this weekend, and we're very happy. It's comfortable, it's spacious.
I'm about 5'9".
But comments on his video disagreeing with his take. Elon is clearly not a camper, and what an absolute pain to set up for what you actually end up with. While design changes from concept to production are not unusual, the mixed tent reviews come as some users share old school car troubles they're having with this futuristic vehicle. From a truck struggling to drive in the snow to this video of a Cybertruck getting stuck on an incline and getting towed by a Ford pickup truck. And then this video of a user showing the truck allegedly malfunctioning as it's being driven off the lot.
Oh, we already broke it.
This week, Tesla reporting sales dropped by 8.5% from last year, beating even the most pessimistic predictions from analysts.
Frustration among the Tesla faithful about the direction of the company. The stock is down dramatically at a time when the market in general is seeing a real kind of exuberance.
And when it comes to those tents, competition is heating up. Rivian's electric SUV also boasting camper-like adaptability with options for a full travel kitchen and a rooftop tent. As the EV market grows, so are expectations, and Tesla now feeling the pressure.
Thanks to Stephen Romo for that report.
And coming up, he's kept us entertained online for years. Now he's making his directorial debut for Prime Video.
After the break, the supremely talented Rudy Mancuso on his life in living color, so to speak. The rare condition that morphs everyday sounds into beautiful music in his movie Musica. Stay with us. That's up next.
Welcome back. Grab your special someone and a couple of limes. Researchers at the University of Michigan say couples who drink together may stay together longer, or at least couples who drink the same. Researchers studied thousands of couples over the span of 20 years and found spouses with similar drinking habits reported better quality marriages and were actually married longer. So cheers. Right?
There you go. Cheers. The same drink, of course.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Savannah. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.